Yes, I have Diego Pons right here.
Great. Please go ahead, Diego.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here tonight. I'm here, Diego Pons, here on behalf of the Community Language Cooperative. The organizers of this meeting continue making a commitment towards language justice. So all this means is that we're here to help create a space for people to continue participating and engaging in the language of their heart, just simply the language that you feel most comfortable in. We're going to continue using simultaneous interpretation to help create the space in English and in Spanish here on Zoom. So once I finish saying this in English, I'll repeat it in Spanish. At that moment, we turn on the interpretation. And once the interpretation is on, you'll be able to see that globe icon that says interpretation there in the bottom right-hand corner of your computer screen. I'll ask you to please select your preferred language, and we'll get started that way. If you happen to be joining this meeting on your cell phone or your tablet, please look for the More button or the 3 dots button in order to select your preferred language that way. So if you're not fully bilingual, we encourage you to select your preferred language so you may utilize the interpretation whenever someone would be speaking in the opposite language. If you are bilingual, then you can just feel free to listen to everyone in their original language. You would not need to select any language channel if you do not want to do so, and you would not ever have to hear my voice as the interpreter. As always, once you select your language, you may check your original audio so you don't have to be hearing languages at the same time. As always, please pay attention to the speed in which you're speaking. Just please make sure that you're speaking at a conversational pace like I am right now, and please make sure that you do not pick up your reading speed. So thank you so much for that. Buenas tardes a todos y a todas. Mi nombre es Diego Pons. Estoy aquí de parte de la Cooperativa Comunitaria de la Justicia del Lenguaje, CLC. Como siempre, gracias por invitarnos hoy a su reunión. Los organizadores de esta reunión se han comprometido hoy a servir la justicia del lenguaje, y eso significa que, como siempre, queremos crear un espacio para que todas las personas puedan participar e involucrarse en el idioma de su corazón, simplemente el idioma en el que todas las personas se sientan más cómodas. Vamos a continuar hoy utilizando la interpretación simultánea aquí en Zoom para poder crear ese espacio en inglés y en español. Y cuando yo termine de decir esto, se va a activar la interpretación. Ya cuando está activada la interpretación, usted va a poder ver un icono de un globo terráqueo que dirá interpretación ahí abajo en la derecha de su pantalla. Por favor, seleccione ese icono del globo terráqueo cuando aparezca en su pantalla, y por favor, seleccione su idioma preferido. Pero si usted está asistiendo hoy a esa reunión en su celular o en su tableta, yo le voy a pedir que por favor busque la opción que dice More, que quiere decir más, o posiblemente el botón de 3 puntos para que usted pueda seleccionar su idioma preferido de esa manera. Si usted no es completamente bilingüe, yo le voy a pedir a que por favor seleccione su idioma preferido para que pueda utilizar la interpretación cuando alguien está hablando en el otro idioma. Si usted sí es bilingüe, entonces se puede sentir libre de escuchar a todos en su idioma original. No necesitan seleccionar ningún canal de idioma y jamás tienen que escuchar mi voz como intérprete. Y como siempre, cuando usted seleccione su idioma, puede hacer clic en silenciar el audio original para no escuchar ambos idiomas al mismo tiempo. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Diego. I'm going to start the City Council meeting, as I have done almost every session that I've chaired, with a personal land acknowledgement. This is my statement. It is not a statement of individual councilors or council as a whole. For thousands of years, this region was home to numerous people, bands, tribes, and nations. Each had their distinct culture, artistic expression, and community mores. In particular, this region was the ancestral home of the Nuchu, Dene, Pueblo, Hopi, multiple Apache bands, and various other tribes and Latinx people who used and stewarded this land. I recognize that indigenous peoples were forcibly removed from their ancestral lands by the U.S. government. It is therefore important to recognize that the narrative of this region has mostly been told from the dominant perspective, without recognition of those who came before us and who to this day continue to thrive, create, and connect with this land. Thank you for your respect in my acknowledging this legacy. Thank you. We will start by any identification of a perceived conflict of interest, actual or perceived conflicts of interest. Counselors, is there anything we need to be aware of? Okay, great. I'm going to ask council if we may. We have quite a few special guests tonight, and I know they may have worked a long day or they have a long night ahead of them. So what I'd like to do is ask council if you would allow me to just change the schedule for a moment to allow the city manager to make some special remarks in recognition. If I may change the agenda. Support?
Yes.
All right, please, city manager, please take it away.
Absolutely. I'm going to ask for the streets team, if y'all wouldn't mind coming up, and Joey and Allison to come up also as well. I think it's just important to have y'all up here so the people at home can see us. So if y'all won't mind moving us, by the
Or up in
dais.
front of us.
Absolutely. Come on in.
One more
One more
time.
time.
Come on up.
For sure.
Yeah, let's see them here. If they're-
Absolutely,
they'll block up.
perfect.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, you'll get seen. Perfect. No, you're good.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Mayor and Council, I am just extraordinarily proud to have the opportunity to introduce for recognition our street snow plowing crew. They've been working around the clock for the past 4 weeks now, I believe, taking care of over, was it Joey, 36 inches of snowfall that we saw accumulated, and just the importance and criticalness of the role that they play when you look at offering services as a city. I don't think it gets more shown through than what their work has done in keeping our roads open for first responders, allowing people to go to work, allowing businesses to stay open, allowing our youth to go to school. It is a very difficult job and in trying circumstances in which they do place themselves in danger as they do it, and it doesn't go unnoticed in their work and what they do for our community, and just wanted to have an opportunity to thank them and have the council have an opportunity to thank them as well for all the work that they have done. And as an interesting fact, and I did confirm with Allison that we have just as many lane miles as Grand Junction. So when you look at the work that this crew does day in and day out, it is very amazing in them being able to do that here for the city of Durango. We're very fortunate to have them here as well. Also, we do just want to do a shout out to our Parks and Recreation snowplow crews, as well as our airport snowplow crews as well. Just a great team effort we have, and just so proud to have a great team in our streets plows to be able to keep our roads safe.
Thank you. I'm going to ask council. Where's the gentleman I asked about who does my street? Especially, I'm just gonna say, when I wake up at 2:30 in the morning, maybe 3:30, I walk out to the living room and I can hear you on the snowplow. Thank you. So thank you for your service. If anyone else wants to say anything, please do.
Yeah, I just know you guys have worked so hard this past month, and I thank you so much. It's been just a huge month, which is great, but you guys paid the price, and we sure appreciate you keeping us safe. Thank you.
All right. On that, we will move to public participation. Give folks a chance to step out if they like. Thanks, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Stay safe. Take care. Thank you. Yeah. Public participation. This section of the agenda is set aside for the public to provide comments or ask questions regarding items that are not scheduled for a hearing or public testimony, or that do not otherwise appear on this agenda. City Council will not respond to questions from the dais. Citizens should address their comments directly to City Council. As this is a hybrid meeting, the avenues for public participation have been adjusted, and all written comments received by the city clerk by noon today have been delivered to council and will be summarized in the meeting minutes. And I will also add that I make a point to read those written comments before we go into a city council meeting. What we'll do is we'll start with anyone in the physical audience who has signed up and wishes to speak. You'll have 3 minutes. And Nick will put the clock on the up on the screen, and I will try to wave my hand when it's about 30 seconds or so. That's your cue to try to wrap things up. Is there anyone in the council chambers who is signed up to speak tonight? No, perfect. Has anyone virtually signed up to speak or raised their hand to speak?
No, Mayor, no one has indicated that they would like to speak.
All right, thank you. Then we'll move on to the next item, which is city operational updates. City manager, please take it away.
Absolutely. In this information for the first one we have is the Durango Fire Protection District Impact Fee Schedule update. We do have the Durango Fire Protection Chief. I'm gonna try that again. Durango Fire Protection District Fire Chief Hal Dowdy here to give a presentation in regards to the impact fee. This is not an item for approval tonight. Just wanted to give council the ability to see the fee schedule, have any questions before coming back for a formal approval, and I will let Hal take it from here.
Thanks very much, Madam Mayor, City Council, Mr. Madrigal and staff. Thanks so much for seeing us. I think that you're all aware that a few years ago, 2019, the City Council was good enough to pass an impact fee that supports the capital improvements and replacements of firefighting rolling stock as well as bricks and mortar projects that we have. And that program's going along really well. It's been quite useful to us in our endeavors to try to stay up with the projects that we've got. And most recently, we were successful in getting approval from La Plata County and San Juan County in our endeavor to have a district-wide impact fee that would be the same across all borders. And for us, that was a big deal because we didn't want to create diversity with the impact fees that we had, making it more favorable to build in the city or in the county. And for those of you that were kind of tracking on that project, it was quite an endeavor. 2016, we started working on that. You were gracious enough to step out in 2019 and approve those impact fees. And I have just recently, just prior to my retirement, completed what I thought was going to be a couple-month project when I started in 2016. So I wanted to update you. I've provided, I believe in your packet, the newest study, like the City Council asked me to do when we came to you for approval. They asked me to regenerate the study and make sure that it was completely up to date before they agreed to approve it. And so we've redone the study, and that fits nicely with the compulsion that was included in the MOU that we struck with your body, that we would revisit that every 2 to 3 years to make sure that we're charging an appropriate amount on impact fees. The recommendation then from us would be that we're here tonight to ask that you consider moving up to the new fee schedule that was designated this time. And that was driven by a couple of pretty key factors. Probably the most noteworthy was the fact that the construction costs on our projections for what our future capital costs will be have gone up considerably. And I know that you're aware of that and you're dealing with that with the projects that you have as well. Additionally, it seems that our study from 2019 missed the mark, and we shot a little bit high on the projection for what residential and commercial construction might look like across the next few years. I'm sure that was impacted greatly by the presence of COVID in all of our lives. But our newest study showed us that we had overestimated that, and so we've made that adjustment. We're still using the same consultant, a local consulting agency under Gabe Preston's command for that. And we're really happy to have him on board helping us with that. This is the third time that he's done the study for us now. So he's gotten it pretty worn in, pretty good at it. At the end of the day, it looks like the impact fees should go to a level of $1,317 per individual residence and should go to $2.32 per square foot on commercial projects. And that's based on what we found to be the same factors that we represented to you in 2019. There's a split of 51% of our total call volume is attributable to residential construction and 49% is attributable to commercial construction. And commercial construction over the last year has been way down. Residential construction has been a bit higher than that. But we know that there's a ton of commercial projects that are waiting in the wings for financing and hopefully to get through the struggles that people are having with getting both labor and materials here to Durango. So we believe that the frequency of the projects that we're going to see is going to go up steeply in the coming year. And this recommendation would balance the city of Durango's impact fees for fire protection with what San Juan County and La Plata County just approved. So same fees across the board. I figured that you would be curious, and so I brought the stats from the last year for what we've collected in impact fees. And this is available also to the public on our website. But in impact fees for 2022, we collected $98,945.84 for residential construction. And we collected a total of $45,845 specifically from the Three Springs area between residential and commercial construction. So about just shy of $150,000 in total from the year 2022. I'm glad to answer any questions that you have. I believe the city manager has us on a schedule cast down the road for consideration and a decision on this, but I just wanted to visit with you this evening and give you the heads up that we're going to be coming and asking.
Questions of the chief?
Thank you, Chief, for the update. One small question. What were the for last year? I was trying to find them quickly, but I couldn't pull them up.
Well, you caught me unprepared. I believe I'm correct in saying that it was $816 per residence and $1.42 per square foot on commercial construction. However, I reserve the right to have misquoted that and be wrong because I don't have it in front of me. But I think that's correct. It's very close to correct if it's not dead on.
So that means it went up, if you say $1.40 or something close, that's more than, that's 50-60% increase on non-residential. And you said 800, that's 60% increase on the residential.
Yeah, I can quote you the changes that we saw in the study this time that would help to support maybe the reason behind the changes. Residential, I do have it here, $819 per residential unit before, and now it looks like it needs to go to $1,317. The commercial went from $164 to $232. The total of the cost for our projected capital impact fees, so that number that we're trying to get to in a 5-year, 10-year, 20 and 30-year horizon window, went up very steeply because of construction costs mostly. Also, the cost of fire trucks has gone through the roof. And so that was actually an upward change of $41 million in total between bricks and mortar project projections and rolling stock projections. As I said, we missed the calculation on the residential units. They fell short. We projected that residential units across a 20-year horizon should be at 6,422 or 6,420 new units. And what the trends showed us across the last 3 years that we're tracking for actually is to only hit 5,920. So that was a reduction of 500 residential units in total across a 20-year horizon. Projected non-residential construction, we projected that at 3,120 square feet. And what we saw was 3,220. So a change upward of 100,000 square feet. And then the projected residential units in the 30-year horizon also had to adjust because of the numbers we saw. So that was downwardly adjusted 750. The less square footage of commercial that we see and the less construction of residential that we see, the more the fees are, so that it supports the amount that we have to get to collecting those fees as we move forward. So those were the changes that we saw.
Thank you for clarifying.
Other questions of the chief?
Well, I appreciate all the work and I appreciate. Thank you. I appreciate all the work. It's been 2.5 weeks since we had a meeting. I forgot how to do this. Back when we were all sitting around the table talking about the impact fees, one of the things that the fire district did was they made a commitment to work with the city to figure out ways to speed up and expedite construction approvals through the fire district. And so when you come back to us, I would love to hear an update on what conversations you've had and how you've achieved that commitment.
You got it. I'm actually really anxious to get to do that because we have made some changes specific to that conversation. So,
Excellent.
yeah, can't wait to talk to you about it.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Chief, I'll just add that along with those construction costs, there's just been an overall significant inflation in the past 3 years as well. So, you can take the raw number of what this increase is, but it's really helpful to break it down in a more specific way. Thank you.
Thank God for the smart people I have around me because I couldn't have pulled that off by myself.
Very good. We look forward to having you come back and we'll be seeing him on the agenda sometime in the next 4 or 5 sessions.
I think it's gonna be sooner, than that, probably in the next 2 sessions.
All right. Wonderful.
Certainly, in the meantime, if you have any questions, I'd be glad to speak with any of you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for your time.
And city manager, next we have an update on, let's see, Southwest, the United Way of Southwest Colorado.
Yes, Cynthia Sneed here is Cynthia Sneed here is going to introduce our speaker.
Good evening, Mayor, councilors. Cynthia Sneed, Finance Director. I'm here to introduce you to Elise Savastano, who's with United Way. Back when the 2023 budget was adopted, it included an amount of $250,000 for the United Way to turn around and distribute through their normal process to some local nonprofits. So Elise is here to report out on what the results of their process were and who got what.
Great, thank you. I'll just give, since it's been a while, a brief overview of what our process was, how it went, and then you all should have copies of our final funding allocations. So United Way of Southwest Colorado contracts with the city, has for several years. This year, our contract amount was $265,000. That's $250,000 that goes directly to local nonprofit agencies, and then $15,000 to United Way for our administration fee. The purpose of this proposed grant is to distribute funding to nonprofit agencies that provide services to those who live, work, and visit the city. This year, we shared the application requests on the United Way website, on the city website, in large email blasts on all our social media channels. And we had 31 applicants from 30 different agencies, which was a 6% decrease in the number of requests overall. However, total requests for funds this year were $407,600 compared to $364,500 requests last year in 2022, which is a 12% increase in the dollar amount in requests. We recruited a committee of all volunteers to review these applications and make funding recommendations. These individuals we take from or recruit from the city that are knowledgeable residents with a variety of backgrounds, some with prior grant review experience. This year, our committee consisted of Jerome Bleasure, realtor, Eric Jones, local banker, Ryan Brungard, an attorney, and Heidi Trainer, a local CPA who specializes in audits. The committee met on December 2nd and announced any possible conflicts of interest and refrained from making any suggestions for those agencies. And the committee also heard brief presentations from each agency over Zoom about their projects and asked questions and clarifying questions from those presenters. And then the committee deliberated and came to a consensus about final funding recommendations and funding priorities that they took into account when making these decisions were does the project fit within at least one of the city's strategic planning goals? What their level of collaboration with other local agencies is, their plan for measurable results, past funding, if they receive past funding, what those results looked like, and then use of city funds to leverage other funds so that we hopefully are, maximizing the dollars coming into the city of Durango. So to summarize, total requests again were $407,600. Available funds were $250,000. So that was $157,600 that had to be cut from the ask. And so of our applicants, 13 were recommended to be fully funded. 15 programs were recommended to be fully or funded at an amount less than they requested, and 3 proposals were not recommended for funding as the committee determined their requests were not a good fit for these funds. And so that is sort of our whole process and what we came to. And we really appreciate this partnership that we have with the city, and especially having these funds available to our local nonprofits. It's really helpful for a lot of folks, especially you can see some of the dollar amounts that were funded and requested are small. However, a lot of those organizations use those to show match local support for other larger grant dollars that they're applying for. So it is really important. So happy to answer any questions you might have.
Council, any questions?
As I was looking through this, I realized it wasn't all that long ago that these requests should come to council as a whole, and council had to sort through them and try to figure these things out. And I just want to say how much I appreciate the work that your group does, not only because of your expertise and your time, but it's a much better process. I think it's easier for all of us, and I think it's better for the community. So I really appreciate that. And I really also appreciate that you're looking at what have they done with their prior funding, and have they been successful at that, and did they meet their goals? And so basing your current funding on that. And I also like how with some of the newer groups, for example, they're not set yet in what they're doing. And so you're saying, okay, we'll help, but we're not going to fully fund you. You need to find other ways to make it work and then come back to us next year. I think that critical thinking is a really great way to do it. So thank you very much.
Absolutely.
I wanted to thank you as well. Thanks so much for all of your efforts. It is a really good system having you guys do this. I have 2 questions for you.
Yes.
How much time does it take your committee to review these applications and make the determinations?
We try to allow a month for the grant applications from the time the grant application is open to when it needs to be submitted. We try to allow a month. And then we also try to allow a month for the committee to be able to review them, because everybody has full-time jobs and our busy lives, and we want to make sure that everybody has enough time to fully dive in and be able to review them. So this year it was about a month.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like a big process to go through it. And I'm noticing in some of these that you do allow some of the expenses to go towards operations.
Yes.
So it's not always just new projects or programmatic. About what portion do you think is operations in this case? Do you have any idea?
I don't, but I can get back to you on that with a more exact number. But what I will say about that is this grant is one of the only grants available to nonprofits that allow funding for operations. So it's hugely critical for these organizations, because you can have all these wonderful programs, but if you have no money to keep your lights on, can't do it. So it's really important. And I know all of the nonprofit agencies, especially the ones that apply year after year for operational expenses, are super appreciative of having that be an option. But when I get back home, I'll get to my computer and I'll look at that and I'll send you all of that over.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting, and I am glad that we are able to support, that aspect as well. But I would be curious about the breakdown, because
Sure.
It's just, it's nice that we can do that. And I sure appreciate your organization's help. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation and what you do for these organizations in helping get these monies put to work. I like the added columns on the requested amounts versus the awarded amounts. Are your thoughts that it would be a lot more beneficial to have more? Obviously, it will be better, but based on this list, you are pretty close to what was asked for. And a lot of times you mentioned that you actually on purpose funded less because it's a new business or
Mhm.
issues. Are you feeling that you have the right amount? We'll see it next year or actually in September. I think, but-
I mean, completely honest, no. I think there are definitely some requests that were like I said earlier, they were not a good fit. The committee determined that, and also some requests that, maybe didn't warrant what they were asking as far as the committee was concerned. However, there are a lot of worthy nonprofits. There's a lot of organizations that do really amazing work and really super important work here. And I know that if the committee were able to fully fund most of these, that would be ideal. I also want to express that this 250 is an increase from previous years. So we are super grateful for that. We were kind of hoping that maybe we would get there this year, but then of course, the need is always great. So any increase would be helpful.
Was there more that have applied for a grant that you did not list on this table?
No.
Oh, okay. Very good. Thank you.
Yep.
I also want to add my thanks to you and also to the volunteers.
Yeah.
It is a huge responsibility. And I want to acknowledge that on the council, I'm thinking that probably all of us are involved in some organization that might be applying here. And so what you also do is the benefit to the service, but you also make certain that with council not being involved with this in the selection process, it also allows us to feel a little more freedom in volunteering in the community in ways. So thank you. I want to recognize that. And I also want to say that I know that unrestricted dollars are the hardest to secure and probably the most valuable. And I think that the city's commitment to that, to saying you don't have to create a program just to fit us. I think it's a real statement of leadership and support. And I also would be interested in additional needs that you feel you need that, so I also encourage folks that throughout the year, we heard from other organizations at the larger level. And when they said that they also needed more money, we always did mention that, well, you could come back to the city manager during the course of the year and he can bring it to council. So if there's something pressing that somebody comes through your doors, please keep that in mind as well. There's
Thank
no
you.
guarantee.
Yeah.
You keep that in mind. Thank you. Thank you so very much.
I just want to say one last thing, which is thank you so much for putting your trust in our organization and our process. We've done this for several years. We've tweaked it. We think we have something that's really streamlined and works very well. So thanks so much.
Thank you. And city manager, did you want to provide an introduction for the next topic?
Just simple, Terry Nykum, our Parks and Recreation Director, to give just an update to a parks inventory and future needs assessment that his department did that I thought was pretty cool and thought it was a good opportunity to share with council.
Is it Nick who's operating Zoom? Nick, Rob Schober might be in our participants list. If he's available, could you promote him into our conversation this evening?
I can do that. Yeah, give me just a second.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, members of council, Terry Nykum, Parks and Recreation Director. I'm here tonight to give you an operational update on our parks inventory and future needs assessment. This really came out of the council's desire to have an understanding of what our needs and costs are in the coming years. So we started putting this together. Rob Schober was our assistant, or actually our interim assistant parks director when Scott McLean was on an extended leave. So he's a person that we kept on staff when Scott came back, and he really helped us put this this report together. He inventoried all the parks. He went out to 36 or 38 sites, did a conditions rating on all the parks, all the amenities within it. So that's why I've asked him to participate tonight in case you had some specific questions. So Rob has Parks and Recreation background. He was the director at City of Grand Junction, Cody, Wyoming, and then he has done this similar type of assessment for various other communities. So as we were going through this, we really wanted to take a look at our park system and then complement Parks Open Space Trails Recreation Master Plan. Within that master plan, they do review all the parks and they give a general high-level assessment of what the parks are like. But in order for us to get into the nitty-gritty and find costs, we wanted to get and do assessments and condition rating on all of the amenities within those parks. So that's what Rob did, is went in there and actually on a scale of 1 to 5 rated whether a shelter or a bathroom is in very poor condition, fair condition, good condition, or very good condition. So that's kind of what was done. He took all of that information and then developed cost estimates to do either replacements, renovations, upgrades, things like that. And then we were able to create this report. I will make a note that this is just for our turf and tables park system. Does not take into account our recreation facilities, our open space lands or trails, and things like that. So it's just the turf and table parks. In front of you is kind of a snapshot of one of the parks. This is Jenkins Ranch Park. Really kind of shows what the assessment was. First off, there's parks data. We have the classification, whether it's a neighborhood park or a community park, ownership. We do have some parks out there that are not owned by the city. Smith Sports Complex is a prime example of that. Then we looked at size and all those sorts of things. The table that is below that park data information is really kind of the bones of this report, and that really shows you what those assessments were. Jenkins Park Ranch actually comes out very well. You can see it has a lot of 4 and 5 ratings. There is a 1 rating, and that's the tennis court surfacing that we probably need to address in the coming year. Other things in this report, there's challenges that Rob identified. A lot of those challenges were identified just by him walking the park, but there's a lot of things he can't see, irrigation systems, things like that. So we did talk extensively with our frontline staff to get some more information on things that maybe he couldn't see. He also noted some opportunities that maybe we could take advantage of. Taking a look at, whether we could, like here, resurfacing the tennis courts while we're doing the pickleball courts. So really kind of taking advantage of some opportunities. So he identified a lot of that stuff. So taking these reports on all the individual parks, we then went up and created a capital replacement schedule. So he was able to really kind of identify all those things within all the different parks that are poorly rated or very poorly rated. And this is just what all the very poor rated amenities came out as. So it looks across all the parks. From that, we were able to look at over the next 20 years, what that's going to look like for us financially. So all those items rated very poor. Maybe we want to take a look at them in the next year, maybe 2 years. Poor rated items, 2 to 3 years. Fair item assessments of amenities rated as fair, 5 to 10 years and so on. So we were able to really kind of lay out what that's going to cost us for the next 20 years to take care of what we got in our park system. As Rob was going through this, he really conveyed back to us that, our park system is actually in really good shape. 76% of the amenities that he rated are either fair, good, or very good. Which is great. So that means that we're taking care of what we got. We do have about 26% of our amenities out there that we need to take a look at in the next 1 to 3 years. So that was good to hear that our Parks Department is taking care of what we got out there. Couple other comments and things that he noted. Safety. He noted that we had minimal, if any, safety concerns in our park system. So he finds that in quite a few other systems where he's done these assessments, that there are quite a few more safety issues out there. So we're going out there and taking care of hazardous, dangerous amenities that may be harmful to the public. So that was also good to hear. He did say that he developed costs on a conservative basis. And he is recommending that we look at maybe some renovations more generally at Folsom, Riverview, and Schneider. Schneider Park, though, we are looking at putting pickleball courts. We're in that design process right now. And we are actually looking at a design for the restroom facilities right now, too. So that is moving forward. You recommend also that we look at 4 other sites for master plans, and those could potentially be done in-house. And that would be Folsom, Buckley, Mason Center, and Rotary. Buckley and Rotary are kind of special use parks where we do a lot of community events. So maybe we need to have a community conversation about those facilities and how they will be best used and operated. So you recommend master plans for that. So and then just a note, the poor and very poorly rated amenities, we're looking at about $2.2 million, $750-ish thousand over the next 3 years to take care of that. On that note, I would like to say that a lot of these things can be already taken care of in our operations budget. So he noted things like wood chips that need to be replaced in a playground. We can do that within our current budget, things like that. So this is not, we need to get this amount of money to upgrade our parks. We are taking care of some of this as we're working on a day-to-day basis. So with that, that's the presentation. Be happy to answer any questions and I'll open it up for comments.
Council?
I appreciate that too. I think that was a very interesting presentation with all the assets and the plan 5. I think it's really good to see what we have and what we're facing in the future. So yeah, that's really nice to see. I had one question for you on the undeveloped parks, which is Easter Heights Park and Holly Park. They're very distinct. One, Holly is on the corner and Easter Heights, it's at the end of a cul-de-sac. First of all, why are they called parks versus undeveloped parks versus, for example, undeveloped lots or properties? Maybe you can give some background on why they are called parks, because I mean, if I look at especially the Holly corner lot, that would be definitely an option for different uses.
That's a great question. And I'd have to go back and look at maybe some of the history as to why it is called a park versus a lot or city-owned property. But I can say probably Easter Heights was one that was, as part of the development, was identified as a future park. It just hasn't been developed that way. Holly itself, that one's an interesting property. There's been a lot of activity on it that we would have to do some remediation and mitigation on. And as far as the other part of the history as to why it's called a park, I'd have to look at that.
Even if it's called a park, is it complex to say, well, unless it's, I guess, on a however the city got that property, maybe there's restrictions on its use, but would it be something, what would be the process if you want to use that differently? Because it is a bare lot. Yeah, it's really...
So actually, if you go through this report, there's quite a few properties, and Rob identified several that maybe the city of Durango does not want to keep in its inventory. And I think the city of Grand Junction actually just recently did this too, where they put those properties up that they really didn't have a use for in the future up for sale. Of course, that has to go to a vote. But that is one opportunity that we could look at. Those properties that we don't necessarily want to develop as parks or some other city amenity, we can look at putting those up for sale. And that was recommended in here as well.
Yeah, I think we try to do land banking to help the very low income housing opportunities. But so it would be, if you sell it, it would be also good to figure out, is there a use for that? Because once it's gone, it's gone. And then we might end up buying the property next door for land banking. So anyway, appreciate that update, and I look forward to that additional information on the use of it.
I thought this was super helpful and useful, and we should do it for every department and like just to know what we have coming up and to prepare and plan. I think it's makes perfect sense. You said $750,000 a year. Was it that 39? I forget. 729. Okay. If you were to guess, how much wouldn't be covered under your like maintenance that you have?
No, there's some amenities that, yeah, we wouldn't just cover under our operations or our maintenance budget. You know, playground replacement are relatively large expenditures. So we would want to get those scheduled into some sort of capital replacement programs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I will say, yeah, we did our turf and table parks. We're starting to talk about how we could go out and get this information for our recreation facilities and trails and the like. So
That would be amazing, I think. Great, thanks.
Other comments?
Well, you know how excited I was about this at the Parks and Rec Board meeting. This is just a great report to all of what you've said about how to manage our dollars and do the most effective things. And I do think, Jessica, it would be nice to know the list of the CRs and the Ms for maintenance and then the CIPs. That might be helpful too for staff just to be able to have that information. But going back to the Jenkins Ranch Park one, I just wanted to say, thank you, Rob, for mentioning develop a neighborhood dog park in a large swale space. You know, we've all been talking about we need more neighborhood dog parks because we have a lot of people with dogs. And right now we have one major established dog park, which is hard for people to get to. So I'm really excited about that, and taking advantage of space that can't be used for other things is a perfect use for dog parks.
I think there were 2, 3, maybe 3 parks that were identified as potential dog parks.
Yeah, I think that's a great too, because you're adding in things that council has talked about and asked about, and it's just a simple way to do it. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Turi. I just think it's really great to see how far we've come with this whole planning process, which started with our post plan back in 2020, which really was a very big step for our community. And that detailed the state of the system back in 2020 while identifying areas and making recommendations, which we've already made progress on, which is connectivity of the Animas River Trail and Smart 160, implementing Durango Mesa Park, and we're starting to, and Lake Nighthorse Recreation Area, among others. But it also talked in that plan about the importance of maintenance and infrastructure and addressing aging facilities. And so this document is a very, very good complement to that document, and it was needed. And since we look at policy as a high level as council, I think it was really important for me to note in their conclusion of this assessment that, you know, first of all, parks and recreation departments throughout the country are struggling right now with maintenance costs associated with their developed park amenities. And then it's often the priority to build new rather than devoting time and funding towards maintenance. But for me, the most important conclusion was that Durango staff, and I would say past and present, and Durango Council, and I would also say past and present, were commended in the report for their emphasis on safety throughout the entire system. So for me, in my time on council, that need to balance the maintenance versus the new project is always a balancing act. But I feel really confident in looking that, you know, you guys through this process assessed 35 parks, very few safety concerns were identified. And so for that, I really want to thank you as our Parks and Recreation Director, and our past Parks and Recreation Director, Kathy Metz, and past councils and our current council. I do support the plan of attack for addressing the items that need most urgent replacement over the next 3 years. I think that's a very good plan of attack that you've identified in the plan. And I was also happy to see not just the small dog parks, but also the 14, the bike racks throughout, the 14 additional bike racks that you identified in the plan. So yeah, I just think it's very helpful to have this. I do think it's a good idea to update it every couple of years, and I think it's a very good complement to the post plan. So together, it's very helpful foundation for our department.
Great, thank you.
And I will jump in, asset management, right? We need to think about it as for the entire assets of the municipality, but we started here and I appreciate it. I think it's really important to make certain that we take care of what we've spent hard dollars to build. So I think that's important. I wanted to recognize, I do appreciate the dog parks mentioning that. I think we all know that this is a dog loving community. And I think it's really important to have places that are safe for the dogs, which means they're probably fenced in so they can run free. And I don't think we always want all our dogs playing on tennis courts, but that seems to be the option right now. So that's one, I'm pleased with that. Quite a few years ago, before 2019, citizens formed a committee to really work on having a commitment from the city to address organic park management. And so unless I missed it in this, I was really looking for a sense of your progress that you anticipate making on converting more of our parks to being fully organically managed. That, you know, addresses our sustainability, it addresses issues around resilience and other issues. So you may not have it here, but I want it so noted that I still would be interested in seeing that. And then the last thing we've talked about for some time is overlaying something like with what needs to take place with the study that Parks and Rec was going to do and maybe is in the process of doing, that looks at what investments have we made and where, and is there equity in our distribution of Parks and Rec dollars across the community, or are some neighborhoods getting significantly more of that investment and others getting less? And of course, you think of Three Springs, but I also think of South Durango, south of College Avenue. Do we have have we made those kind of investments in the one park that we may have there? So I wonder if you could give us an update on that study and where you're at.
Sure.
And also some sense of the organic management. Thank you.
Sure. First, we did identify within this report what parks are organic versus which are just that are not. In terms of, we are still working with the organic community and taking care of the parks that we do have. And we've been doing it more on an annual basis and talking about future areas to move into. So that's kind of where we're at. We probably could do a little bit more planning around that, in all honesty. And I'll talk to our Parks Department about where we can make some progress on that front. Regarding equity, we are still working on what you've requested. Our maps person, Amy Schwartzbach's been tasked with kind of coming up with that map to see where we spent our money. And then we were going to overlay that with the, the socioeconomic overlay. We just haven't gotten fully through that process yet, but we will be working on that in more diligent manner.
Thank you, Tori. And what I do want to say on the organic, I appreciate the continuation of the ones that were created. There is my understanding there was a real commitment to increasing that number over a period of time so that we had more organic parks rather than just maintaining what we have. So again, I think that I appreciate you working with that community. It's an active group of folks. And I know they've asked me for the update. And I know we've also postponed that because we had higher priorities. So I recognize that as well, trying to fit everything in. And I look forward to seeing that economic study and where we've been distributing our resources. So
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mayor, you mentioned the asset management. We just, so you know, the RFP closes at the end of February for the asset management.
There we go.
Association.
Thank you.
So yes, there you go.
We're on it. Thank you, City Manager. Okay. The review of the consent agenda. The consent agenda is intended to allow the City Council by single motion to approve matters that are considered routine or non-controversial. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member requests an item be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Items removed from the consent agenda will be considered under agenda item 9. May we have a reading of the consent agenda?
Items 8.1 through 8.4 are approval of minutes. 8.1 is approval of minutes of the January 9th, 2023 City Council special meeting. 8.2 is approval of minutes of the January 17th, 2023 City Council study session. 8.3 is approval of minutes of the January 17th, 2023 City Council regular meeting. And 8.4 is approval of minutes of the January 19th, 2023 City Council joint study session with the Durango Fire Protection District. 8.5 is discussion of possible action regarding a resolution approving appropriation of funds from the 100 Club of Durango. 8.6 is discussion of possible action concerning a resolution authorizing an appropriation for the Department of Public Safety, Division of Criminal Justice for crime prevention through Safer Streets grant program that will close on June 30th, 2023. 8.7 is discussion of possible action concerning a resolution authorizing appropriation for the Department of Public Safety, Department of Criminal Justice for the Justice Assistance Grant Program that will close by December 31st, 2023. 8.8 is discussion on possible action concerning a resolution authorizing an appropriation for the Colorado Department of Law Post-Grant Award Program that will close by June 30th, 2023. 8.9 is a request for a public hearing to consider revisions to the Chapter 3 of the Code of Ordinances in the City of Durango related to alcoholic beverages, specifically regarding local approval of takeout and delivery permits, with that hearing to be held February 21st, 2023. 8.10 is a request for a public hearing to consider an ordinance authorizing a ground lease with Thomas Phelps at the airport to be held February 21st. 8.11 is a request for a public hearing to consider an ordinance authorizing a ground lease with Roots and Wings Aviation LLC at the airport. 8.12 is a request for a public hearing to consider an easement for the La Plata Electric Association for the installation of electric utility line to service the Durango La Plata County Airport to be held on February 21st. 8.13 is a request for a public hearing to consider the Gulf Minor subdivision 3001 West 2nd Avenue on February 21st. 8.14 is a request for a public hearing to consider the Clemens Minor subdivision 2375 West 2nd Avenue to be held on February 21st. 8.15 is a request for a public hearing to consider land use and development code text amendments to be held on February 21st. And lastly, 8.16 is a final reading of ordinance 2023-001, authorizing a lease amendment with Agile Space Industries Incorporated at the airport and declaring an effective date.
Thank you. Does any counselor wish to have an item removed?
I'd like to remove 8.5, please.
Anyone else? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda minus 8.5?
So moved. Approve the consent agenda minus 8.5. Yes.
I'll second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Please have the vote.
Councillor Baxter,
Yes.
Councillor Gill,
Yes.
Councillor Bosman's,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Musa,
Yes.
and Mayor Noseworthy.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Baxter, would you like to discuss 8.5?
Yes, thank you. I was so focused on it, I didn't understand Jessica's motion. It's discussion and possible action regarding a resolution approving an appropriation of funds from the 100 Club of Durango. And I wanted to call out our police department and the 100 Club and say how much I appreciate you working with the community and the community working with you. The 100 Club is a great group of people who supports the fire department as well as the police department and their families, which is very, very important. And this scholarship, they did a scholarship fundraiser, which will offset tuition costs for local citizens who desire to be police officers. And that helps with our diversity of our police department, as well as bringing community members into our police department. So this will sponsor one of 5 new officers in the next academy. And I wanted to bring that to the forefront, as well as to mention we have 3 other items on the consent agenda that are also about grants for the police department that provide safer streets, that provide better connection to community, and to help keep our community safer. And I just want to acknowledge the good work that you guys do. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Chief, did you want to say anything? We'll give you that opportunity.
I would love to take an opportunity to talk, especially about this. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council, for this opportunity to talk about this evening. 100 Club is a fantastic organization that supports our community and supports our first responders. And we were really lucky this last year. They did a fundraiser in order to help us offset our academy costs. An equal amount of money went to the sheriff's office so they could do the same type of program.
Excellent.
But currently we have 5, we actually have 6 cadets in the academy. 5 are being sponsored. And some of this funding is going to go to sponsor them. And it furthers our 30 by 30 initiative, as you mentioned, which is to diversify our workforce by getting 30% of our workforce to be women by the year 2030. It's an IACP, International Association of Chiefs of Police initiative, and it's really great. And then these 2 gentlemen that we've got in the audience today worked really hard in order to get these other grants that we've got out there on tonight's consent agenda as well. And we hope it continues to help support our community and make it safer. And we also want to thank the council for your opportunity to continue to support us on this as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
With that, I'll make a motion to approve item 8.5.
I'll second.
Is there any other discussion on this topic? Let's have this vote.
Councillor Beal.
Yes.
Councillor Baxter.
Yes.
Councillor Bosman's,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Musa.
Yes.
And Mayor Noseworthy.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. Next, we we have no public hearings tonight. So we also have no ordinances to introduce. I'm expecting some of those will be coming in the coming weeks.
February 21st is going to have a lot of public hearings. So we may have to look at maybe having breakfast.
I recognize that.
I hope not.
We will move to general business items. Item 13.1 is a housing partnership update. Scott and Eva, are you both coming up?
Yeah.
Okay, you'll set it up.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council, Scott Shine with the Community Development Department. And we are very pleased to be able to take some of this extra time that you had without many public hearings to give you an update on 3 key housing initiatives that our team has been working on along with members of the community over the past few months. So I'm going to kick things off, but we also have Eva Henson, Housing Innovation Manager, and Dan Armentano, a planner in our office, that will step up and participate in the updates. So this is just informational. We're not asking for action on any of these, but we felt it was important to keep you informed as we move through setting up these partnerships, starting to identify terms that each partner is committing to. And we also wanted to do it in a public forum. So in a meeting that's recorded to really demonstrate to the community that we're hearing the feedback, we're hearing the direction that council is giving us, and we are working very closely with a wide variety of partners in the community and looking at new approaches to developing more residential options for our community. And it's very exciting to see some of those really taking shape. Public-private partnerships are not simple and they're not always straightforward. All of the terms are always need to be customized, and there's a lot of negotiation and back and forth, but our team is very passionate about seeing these come to fruition. And like I said, we're excited to share with you some of the big steps that we've been taking recently. This is an opportunity for you to ask us questions, make sure you're clear on the direction we're headed, and provide input on any of these initiatives. So while we're not asking for action tonight, please feel free to engage, make sure you're comfortable with where we're heading. So we have 3 initiatives we want to touch on. We are proposing to break down our time in this way. We're going to start with the Three Springs Village 2 and infrastructure partnership. That's going to be sort of the most detailed presentation. And we have our partners with us to help with that presentation. Then we'll talk about Durango Crossings, a little bit more of a high level overview and not as much detail. And then Fair Share update is really just a quick update saying sharing some exciting news, but not getting so much into the content of that program tonight, but a lot more of that to come in the near future as we take the next steps. So starting with Three Springs, this has been.
Minute, Scott, I may ask a question. You put a timeline on there. Again, I'm assuming that you're allowing 25 minutes for your presentation and for council questions.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
And yeah, it's probably appropriate after each one of those to take a bit of time for questions and then move on to the next one. So thanks for clarifying. So Three Springs Village 2 and infrastructure partnership was kicked off in the summer of 22. You remember in the spring, we had some conversations with GRVP LLC, which is the development arm that's been working on Three Springs. And we very quickly have been able to go through the governing documents for Three Springs. We've met with a a lot of partners, and we'll be presenting some concrete next steps to you tonight. And in the spirit of partnership, we have Tim Zink with GRVP, who's going to do part of this presentation. Tim has been involved in Three Springs since the very beginning. His family's been in Durango for a long time. We're very fortunate to have Tim as part of this project. And then we're also going to bring in John Kessel from Dakey Development Advisors, who have been a very crucial part of the team, and he'll tell you more about their role. But I'll pass it over to Tim and then be available for questions later.
How do I advance the
Just
roller?
no,
Got it. Thank you. Mayor Noseworthy, City Council, thank you for this opportunity. It's been a while since we've been in front of you. And I think an appropriate place to start is actually with a little bit of history. The picture on the screen is actually an aerial photograph from 2001. I don't know how many of you were here or remember all of this. The outline that are shown here is Three Springs on the right, and then Three Springs Crossing is the lower outline on the middle there. I bring this up because in 2001, the Southern Ute Indian tribe had acquired a piece of property that was really a buy hold for the Southern Ute tribe. The next step that really triggered everything to start happening with Three Springs was the Mercy Regional Medical Center got a $76 million line of credit. And it had been 100 years since we had really had an opportunity to build a state-of-the-art hospital locally. And through the work with the Mercy Regional Medical Center and the Southern Ute Indian Tribe and the contribution of land that the tribe gave to Mercy Regional Medical Center, it really was the pivotal point to say, okay, it is now time to look at developing this area. And so always fun to look at the history here. Since this point, I'm going to jump to this map. 21 years later, you can see that we've developed several major infrastructure points. There's a pointer, there we go. So as far as access, we've built the Three Springs Boulevard, Highway 160 intersection. There is a connection now with Wilson Gulch over to the interchange that's occurred. That's on the access side. Water, there's been a 4 million gallon water tank installed up in the north west corner of Three Springs, as well as a pump station to get the water up there, an extension of the water line, an extension of the sewer line for South Durango Sanitation District. But we also propped up South Durango Sanitation District in their conversion to a mechanical plant through a tap fee guarantee purchase agreement. We brought high pressure gas lines into the area. We brought electrical. There's an electrical substation here located that gives secondary and redundancy for the hospital, but also serves the entire community there at Three Springs and in Grandview. Telecommunications, basically all of the backbone infrastructure we got to install to create this opportunity. I'm an accountant by background, so I love numbers. And so I'm going to give you some numbers. Built so far as of December of 2022, there's been 676 residential units built at Three Springs. Of those, 119 of them are affordable rental through the Pinion Terrace project and the Volunteers of America project that have occurred in Three Springs. There's 183 market rate rentals. That leaves 374 for sale product that have occurred at Three Springs. We tracked the for sale product and the sale prices up until 2017 as part of our agreement with the Regional Housing Alliance. And as of that point, we had 125 of those units had sold in the Regional Housing Alliance's affordable or attainable 4 tiers. So if you start to take a look at that, 125 for sale product, 183 market rate rentals, 119 affordable rentals, that's 427 units. As a percentage, that's 63% of the units that have occurred in Three Springs are really in that range that gets people in homes. It gets people in a place to live. And that's really always been the vision of Three Springs. From the very beginning, we wanted to be a community where people in Durango could buy homes, live in the community. One of the things I mentioned that we tracked it up until 2017. In 2017, we switched gears. We negotiated an affordable, attainable transfer fee agreement with the city of Durango. We'd already established a transfer fee at Three Springs, and that every time there's a home that is sold, 0.5% of the sale goes to an affordable, attainable fund. We agreed to transfer that money to the city of Durango to support affordable and attainable housing throughout the community. As of December, we had transferred over $900,000, $910,000 from affordable attainable to the city. We'd also given $44,000 to the Regional Housing Alliance as part of a down payment assistance program. So that's over $950,000 that has already been generated through that transfer fee. Why am I so focused on the affordable attainable? You're going to get more information about this, but really what we're starting to do is we're starting to look at moving into Village 2. And the whole goal for us is to be that provider of affordable, attainable, and above beyond. We want to be a broad brush supplier of housing for the community. A couple of things that I also want to note here, because so much of the city's budget comes from sales tax. In Three Springs currently, there's 130,000 square feet of commercial already built. If you add the hospital and the attached medical office building, and the Morehart Murphy Subaru dealership, we're at 500,000 square feet of commercial space that have been built in Three Springs. When City Council approved the Three Springs conceptual development plan, they really put a stake in the ground and said, this is the place that we're going to grow. And people heard that loud and clear. Because if you start to take a look at other projects, other investments that have occurred in this area, I think it's pretty safe to say there's probably $500 million of investment in the Three Springs Grandview area. And some of the big ones, Mercy Regional Medical Center, $76 million. The CDOT expansion of 160 and the interchange, probably $60 million. The $100 million extension of 550 and realignment of 550. The medical office building with Mercy Regional Medical Center is probably $25 million. And you can just go down the list. Even the city of Durango, there's a police station that was built by the city of Durango at Three Springs. All this to say that the infrastructure's here. This is where we want to build housing. And as we look at Village 2 and contemplate how to move into there, there's an alignment happening with state and federal infrastructure dollars. And this is a perfect time to take advantage of that, to be able to take some of the infrastructure costs to move into Village 2, to really leverage a partnership, to ultimately provide housing at a spectrum, across the spectrum, for community members. And with that, I'll pass this over back to Scott to introduce John. So.
Great. Thank you, Tim. Nick, I think you've promoted John to a panelist.
Yep, he should be able to speak.
Okay, John, I can run slides for you while you're speaking, but go ahead.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you, Tim. Mayor and council, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. Dakey Development Advisors project team here in Durango is our Rob Dakey. He's an engineer and an attorney, and then myself, I've got a planning and a local administration background. We're serving as a neutral intermediary role, helping the city and GRVP develop and prioritize their goals and strategies. And this process has really let us all see what those common obstacles are that are preventing both sides from reaching their goals, and then also to share in the solutions, particularly the ones that are beneficial to all, and then addressing the financial impediments really will allow new housing to be built, which is so important. Next slide, Scott. When looking at the primary barriers, I think really the first thing that comes to mind are the construction costs. And nationally, they've risen 25% over the last 2 years. Certainly that may be even more in Durango. This impacts large infrastructure projects more because of the longer carrying costs. Those higher costs really create challenges. And then the market size really impacts the number of units that can be reasonably sold each year. And then, for example, in a larger market like Denver, you might see a builder take down 100 units at a time. Well, in Durango, that may be more like 10 units. So you just can't move the units as quickly. And then I think really for the market changes, we're all hearing about the interest rates, higher cost of living, and then a little bit more esoterically, the conservative construction financing that we're seeing today. Those are examples of market changes that are facing Durango. So this market size and market changes, they really impact absorption rates, which in turn add to carrying costs, just like the increased infrastructure costs. Addressing these issues together really allows a range of community goals to be advanced at the same time that you're starting to advance the infrastructure and to create housing opportunities, and creates momentum to go forward. Next slide, please. So some of the key opportunities, I'm going to hurry through this slide pretty quickly, but workforce housing is really a primary goal of the city's affordable and economic opportunity section in the strategic plan. And so one of the things that we're looking at is developing more missing middle land uses in the Three Springs area. And those are things like duplexes and townhomes. And that's both affordable and attainable, and also market rate, as Tim mentioned. We're looking closely at the land trust model, and that's something that's identified in the 3-year workforce housing investment strategy that was published in 2022, I believe, and then the Durango housing plan. I think also importantly, it's an eligible expense for state housing grants, and I've had the privilege of working with another community land trust in another state that out in California that was very successful, and I can't speak highly enough of that particular model. Land banking really allows the city to assemble future workforce housing tracts and plan the sites, get the infrastructure lined up, get the financing lined up, and then this can preserve that pre-development cost and avoid those carrying costs for the project. Ultimately, that comes down to benefiting home pricing and the people who need to try and get into a more affordable or attainable house. Leveraging state and federal funds right now for infrastructure appears to be most available when partnered with housing. And that's with the state projects that we're seeing, the state grants. And I will say, kind of moving to Wilson Gulch Drive, sort of as a big picture, the major offsite infrastructure at Three Springs has already been installed. I think Tim covered that exceptionally well. And this makes this area ideal for continued housing to be built, because you're not leapfrogging development. You're actually continuing what's already been put in place and focusing on Wilson Gulch Drive. It lets you address that primary impediment to moving forward in Village 2, but it also creates this short-term immediate opportunity to create workforce housing right now and not sometime in the future. So jumpstarting workforce housing and market rate housing will require strategic use of local resources. And when we consider that, we should do it in a way that's going to deliver long-term value to the community. And we should be considering strategically reallocating public use parcels, but again, only when looking at that with that bigger lens of those community goals that might be housing, neighborhood parks, trails, that kind of thing. Next slide, please. So some of the recommended next steps, I think really looking at the joint Village One Wilson Gulch Drive project. And I believe council is familiar with this, but it's part of a DOLA grant. We originally thought about maybe moving that one forward at a smaller scale, but including it as a main pillar of that DOLA grant is really strategic for the community and will really let us move forward more quickly and take advantage of those federal and state funds, take advantage of some additional partnerships and get that in a shovel-ready place. And so at the same time, we need to really start looking at seeking consensus on what it means to reconfigure the public parcels. And I mentioned this already, but parks, trails, school site, housing, these are all things that need to be considered. And then finally, looking at the Elevation Land Trust partner that's already here in town and seeing if we can create a defined project that would let the city and GRVP approach them and other partners who may have that same shared interest in creating affordable, attainable housing. That's something that we really need to be looking at. Next slide, please. So as we move forward, I really want to emphasize that we should remember the strengths that GRVP and the city already have established in Three Springs. And that's really important for our success. And for example, GRVP has set a very high quality of life standard for Three Springs. I think we'd all agree on that. And they've also been a leader in the workforce housing. That's before there was even fair share. And they continue to be that leader today. The city has standards that produce safe, livable neighborhoods. And that's excellent. We certainly are working on that with them on this project. But they also, the city, have that strategic vision for the future. And this can really be advanced for the community in Three Springs. So we anticipate pursuing this project and some additional partners. I've listed a few there. We can identify more as appropriate, but ultimately what we're working towards is a draft of options for council and for GRVP to look at as the final phase of this project. Thank you, Scott.
Go back for a second. Thank you, John. John has played a crucial role in just overall project management, keeping this moving forward as quickly as it has and identifying those key opportunities. So we really are grateful for their work. I wanted to just really distill it down after kind of that overall presentation. You'll remember GRVP came to us, the city, and they said, when we look at how we need to build out infrastructure to get into Village 2, that's really not penciling for us. That's not a viable option for us to move into Village 2 right now with all the costs and the requirements that are in place. The biggest cost being from this Wilson Gulch extension from where the road currently ends up along into Village 2, along with the water and sewer main extensions. So we had through the housing division budgeted money to support the engineered design of that road and utility infrastructure. In the meantime, a bunch of money got allocated for housing partnerships through DOLA. Eva has been working very hard to formulate those relationships and stay on track of all those funding opportunities. And so last week we submitted a grant for $1.5 million to support both the Best Western conversion and this project and expand the scope of the Wilson Gulch design effort to include what we think is about, like John mentioned, 10 to 15 acres in here that once that road is built, once the utilities are extended, would be a readily developable site that could use that land trust model. And Councilor Bosman's, to your point earlier to Turi about what's the land that we have that maybe we could look at other uses for. Three Springs had committed to dedicating a 75-acre community park and a 40-acre school site when they were originally entitled. We've been talking with Parks and Rec. We've been talking with 9R and saying, is there some wiggle room there? Can we reconfigure that? Can we parcel out a little bit of land to create that, like I said, 10 to 15 acre site that's developable for mixed income housing? As we invest these public dollars in this infrastructure, we would get the return of, I forget the number off the top of my head. It's in the packet. To 200, up to 270 units on that 10 to 15 acre parcel. So that is the most near-term immediate action. We're hoping to hear back from DOLA in the next few weeks. That would get us not only the engineered construction plans and cost estimate for building that infrastructure, but also a design of that neighborhood. We by applying for the grant, we leveled up and we included actual development plans for that neighborhood. So tell your friends at DOLA that we really are going to put that money to good use, and in the governor's office. And then, like I said, the balance of that money will go to support the Best Western conversion, which is a whole other project. So I just wanted to kind of distill that for you as far as immediate actions, things that are moving right now. Bigger picture, we are looking at the overall development agreement, the terms in there, and making sure the standards and the requirements are right-sized, I guess I would say, to make sure that that quality development, to make sure public safety and health is all protected, while also making it more feasible for GRVP to start in on Village 2. So I'll
Thank you.
pause there for
Thank you,
questions.
Scott. I'll open it up for comments or questions from council of Scott or the other presenters.
I'll start. I just want to say, in the summer, the last time we met, I think, was it the summer? It was the summer, right? And we sort of were like, okay, we're not going to go this route, but let's try something new. And now to have this in front of us is super exciting. And the creativity that both, the city staff and you as a partner have, come together and shown. I feel so lucky to have you guys working together and producing such a wonderful potential project. I think that the partnership hopefully will continue to go down this route and finding, like you said, the land banking opportunities and being creative as we look for near-term wins in housing, because it is important, I think, as everyone on council has pretty much committed to, and the long term with partners potentially with Fort Lewis College and Mercy, and to really dial in that workforce housing. So thank you for all your hard work. I love this.
I like to echo that. I think it's really great to see how far we've come with this design and actually making sure all the parties to this discussion, partners, are working in the same direction, and hopefully win-win for everybody, including all of our community. I like the way you split it up in phases. I think it's great to see that. So you have return, it matches with absorption rates. I think in the document, it also covers rental properties, ownership properties, all these different concepts. And I think that is great. I have one specific question for you, Scott. You mentioned the DOLA grant application, and did staff envision a dollar amount which was appropriated in the 2023 budget for the Best Western project, similar as the one for this one?
I'll look to you. I don't know if we specifically allocated funds with Best Western. We have a lump of funding called the Housing Incentive Program. That's where this design money was allocated. And then the balance of that is for sort of opportunities as they arise for partnerships. So it could potentially have been for Best Western, but obviously watching for outside funding to leverage those funds and extend them was part of our goal.
Yeah, it says here, out of the $750,000 for the housing incentives program, you allocated $285,000 for this project.
Yes.
and that was a matching grant.
It would be
Matching part. So if, I'm not sure if that 750 is only the two, or if there's more in the housing incentives program. But because you mentioned Best Western, I thought, does that mean it's almost $500,000?
It's not just the balance for that one other project. No, it's for a range of projects. The
Okay.
ADU incentive program, other types of housing incentive programs.
Well, if ever you come across it, feel free to share that information with me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Others?
Thank you so much for the update. Is there, and thank you, Tim. Is there anything that we can do to support the DOLA grant? I mean, it just seems like such a great, it seems like we would be such a good fit. And I mean, I don't know, we probably, and especially given the percentage of housing that's going to affordable areas, it seems like we would be such a qualified candidate. And I
Yes,
just,
thank you.
anything we can do to help
For us.
support.
That'll be coming before you with a resolution at the next meeting on the 21st. I can say that the city of Durango moved forward through this process the last couple of months. We had originally submitted our LOI back in September. We got moved forward in the process to a pre-application opportunity in November. From November, DOLA vetted through 54
Right, that's what you said.
LOIs to the top 20. Yes, letters of interest, sorry, LOIs, yes. So Durango was one of 20 communities statewide that has moved through this final phase. And so really fortunate that we've had a lot of team players, a lot of coordination, a lot of collaboration went into that grant application. And I feel really proud of the outcome. So hopefully we'll hear more. But the product that we put together had varying support letters, including a mayor support letter, as well as other stakeholder and project partner support letters. So the resolution will be that extra component that DOLA would like to see from the city. It's not infringing on anything that we've already submitted. It would only enhance what we've submitted.
Was 9R, did they send a letter or?
No, 9R did not submit a letter. The additional stakeholders that we included were Three Springs. We included the TWG Development Acquisition Team for the Best Western. We included Elevation Community Land Trust, speaking to the land trust model. We included Homes Fund. We included Economic Development Alliance, and we also included Housing Solutions of the Southwest.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Baxter, do you have anything?
This almost makes me speechless. Notice the almost part. I'm just so excited about these housing options and possibilities. And thank you very much, Tim, and to your group for coming to the table and saying, hey, this isn't going to work out, for being open, honest, and straightforward. How do we work together to make it happen? And then to staff and to Jose for saying, absolutely, let's see what we can do, and for council for supporting it. Because this is what it takes in order for us to have housing in our community for the people who want to live here, who work here, and for our businesses to be successful. I'm just, I'm so excited about it that that's about all I can say, except thank you.
And I'd like to add something. Back in 2019, at one of those many counselor candidate forums, we were asked, in the past 2 decades, what do you consider a major accomplishment of the city? And my answer was the development and annexation of Three Springs, because I knew the number of houses that it had added. So I want to start by acknowledging that group of people that made this happen. Mr. Zink, Patrick Morrissey, Patrick Vaughn, the Southern Ute Indian Tribe, the Tribal Council, the staff, and that city council and the community, because I know at the time, there was a lot of nervousness about doing something like that. So I want to start with that perspective. And I particularly want to give a real acknowledgement to the Southern Ute Indian Tribe with the making the availability of the land, the commitment of the growth fund to do this, to make it work. That's a partnership that I think we need to acknowledge on a regular basis of what that means, what their actions meant to us as a community, and I'm forever grateful for that. Moving forward, one of those other questions was, could we ever envision a time when city council should work with a developer to address infrastructure? And my answer was, well, yeah. Other councilors had different questions, but because I knew that we needed to incentivize it. So what I want to acknowledge now is the incredible work that you guys have all done. You're working to, it's not subsidizing it. You are incentivizing this kind of development. And I see the future in Village 2. So I want to again add my thanks, and my thanks to Mr. Zink and to the others who worked on that, who are no longer working on it, and particularly to the Southern Ute Indian Tribe. Thank you.
Good evening, Eva Henson, Housing Innovation Manager. I'll take this next part over for our presentation, but really wanted to focus in on a couple key takeaways before we go into the next two partnerships. Staff are proactively working to identify the factors that can be addressed through local efforts, then leverage those resources and partnerships to positively impact housing opportunities. These public-private partnerships are some of the creative and innovative approaches to achieving tangible results while meeting city goals. A key takeaway I'd like to emphasize this evening is the current approach for the Housing Innovation Division is to encourage and incentivize a wide variety through a diverse mix of programs, policies, including creation of effective regulations and formation of public-private partnerships. It's a many tools in the toolbox perspective and does not rely on a single program or policy to address the complex, multifaceted housing shortage. For tonight's housing partnerships update, the following affordability and economic opportunity strategic initiatives include the following, and there are 5 tonight with these 3 partnerships. Assess potential for housing development on city-owned parcels. Create housing opportunities to support multi-generational and mixed income community workforce and increase affordability to bridge the disparity between income, home prices, and rental prices. Ensure there is adequate city staff to focus on ways to increase affordable and workforce housing inventory through a variety of mechanisms that include land, changes to code, and public-private incentives. Support the production of a variety of housing types through incentives, partnerships, efficient review processes, and other mechanisms with a particular emphasis on the missing middle income housing. There we go. And undertake fair share program review and identify program improvements for implementation. And with that, I'll kick it off with Durango Crossings Public Partnership involving city-owned parcels. Also on virtual Zoom is Ken Trujillo, the developer for Durango Crossings. So in case there's any direct questions, we may have to allow him to be able to speak. Durango Crossings Partners LLC is a public-private partnership involving city-owned parcels located at 1500 Florida Road. Staff provided a housing partnership update to City Council on November 1st, 2022 that highlighted details of the request for qualifications process and the notice of intent to award to Durango Crossings Partners. This evening, staff will provide an overview that includes exploring opportunities for a partnership to develop a neighborhood containing affordable and workforce housing, along with other compatible uses on city-owned and adjacent properties. A little bit about the development team. Ken Trujillo is a Durango native. He's a former prosecutor in Philadelphia with experience in residential and commercial developer with background in finance and investment. Tracy Reynolds is a local architect and experienced local mixed use and residential developer. Bob Monroe is the principal of RMM Advisors, who's vastly experienced with public-private partnerships and financing affordable housing developments locally and nationwide. Thad Trujillo is also a local real estate professional with experience in Durango's development scene. With that, I'll include Dan Armentano, who will be the lead planner in conjunction with myself on the project leading it forward. He will go over site-specific details and background of the land acquisition, overview of the Durango Crossings Partners proposal and how the city-owned parcels will be utilized for the mix of below market and market rate units, as well as the mixed use component, as well as processes that and dive into those next steps. With that, thanks. Dave.
Thank you, Eva. Dan Armentano with Community Development. Good evening, Council. So that was sort of the why and the who of this proposal. I'll go kind of through the where, a little bit more of the what and the how and when. So this is an aerial image showing sort of the parcels. It's a number of different parcels that are involved in this proposal. The red properties that are highlighted are the city-owned parcels. These were acquired, just for a little history, back, I think around 2 decades ago. I'm not sure the exact date, but originally for the purpose of connecting Jenkins Ranch Road down to Florida Road. The feasibility of that is sort of still in question. And given council directives for housing, we sort of saw these properties as an opportunity for housing instead, while still maintaining that possible future connection down the line. The unique aspect of Durango Crossings proposal is that they're able to bring some privately owned parcels into the development as well. And those are the yellow parcels that are highlighted. Those are already owned by Durango Crossings. So total area we're talking about here is about 7.7 acres. Just under 6 of those are city owned and potential for up to 130 units. So fairly substantial size development. As far as what we are talking about in terms of the product here, because it is a mix of privately owned and city-owned parcels, it is going to be a mix of both below market and market rate units. The exact percentages are not yet nailed down, but in our notice of intent to award to Durango Crossings, we do have requirements that a minimum of 50% of the units will be offered at a below market rate, and a minimum of 50% of those units will be required for ownership. So it'll be a mix of ownership and rental, and of those units, a mix will be below market rate. The targeted AMI is 70 to 120%. And they're also including a mixed use component with this development. There's been talk of potentially a market on site, possibly a daycare. Obviously none of that is nailed down yet, but those would be some nice amenities for the neighborhood. And then as Scott kind of alluded to early on in the presentation, this is a public-private partnership that is complex. So there are a number of different steps involved. I think the properties themselves add a degree of complexity as well. So just to kind of give you an idea of where we're at with this, we have issued, as Eva mentioned, notice of intent to award. We're hoping to move forward with a formal notice to award possibly as soon as this week. Following that, there will be some steps that staff will undertake. The first will be a comp plan amendment. The land uses out there do not perfectly align with what we're proposing. They're not too dissimilar, but we may have to increase the density, accommodate that mixed use component. There will be some neighborhood meetings involved with that. That's a public process that will go before you all as well once it nears completion. Perhaps a little bit following that, and some of these steps may be able to run concurrently to try to improve the efficiency of the process. But we will be looking to get an annexation and conceptual plan development application from Durango Crossings following a pre-application meeting, which will hopefully happen later this month. That annexation process is lengthy, probably 4 to 6 months. And that will involve the drafting of a pretty detailed development agreement, which is really going to lay out city commitments, developer commitments, all of those requirements in terms of how much of the housing stock is going to be affordable for sale. It's also going to require a pretty detailed description of the phasing. This is going to be certainly built in phases. And I think this process and how we're organizing it kind of leads into that somewhat nicely. So hopefully the summer Q3 is sort of our rough estimate. We'll be finalizing that annexation and that development agreement. And then there will be likely a URA component to this because of the city-owned parcels. That gives us an opportunity to allow for some substantial increment to be generated once they're developed. So it's a good opportunity. And then the preliminary PD reviews will come in as in phases. And I think the developer is really interested in trying to get moving on at least phase 1 as soon as possible. So hopefully we can facilitate that for him. So again, a really exciting opportunity. That's about all we have for you, so we can take any questions.
Questions of staff?
Yeah, I have a couple. Thank you for that presentation. I'll split it up in two different angles here. First, I'm a little bit concerned how we use city-owned property. We speak of land banking, affordable housing, and in specific where the city could support organizations that address the very low income housing needs, like the VOA and Habitat for Humanity, and provide them with land, which is typically one of the key costs or obstacles for those organizations. And here we have city-owned land, and we're considering development in ways that I believe it's not addressing the very low income category, because I think it showed 70% to 120% of the AMI. So we're basically either we for land bank, either we buy land or we already have the land, and then we're gonna work with another entity and give them or work something out to give them the land and develop it for affordable housing, but not the really low income. And I think that requires some more thought, because in the end, what is the point for us buying land and then transferring it to a property developer versus them just buying the land directly? Yeah, I guess that's a little bit where I'm struggling with this topic. Do you see that similar concern, or?
Well, I think you have to consider it, you know, if you look at going back to the history for these parcels, right? So they were originally acquired for right of way, essentially for a road connection. Again, feasibility, possibility of that happening at some point in the future is unknown. So we own the land, and if you think about what a typical development would be required to do if it was privately owned, we have our fair share ordinance, which would require 16% affordability. We know that those units aren't being built, and we're typically getting fees in lieu. So in this case, if we are contributing just under 6 acres to the development, and we're able to get 50% or more deed restricted affordable, I think that's substantial. And I think that's part of the reason why we're going that direction. Sure.
One other just thing to be aware of is, you know, we did have another proposal. We put this out to RFP, and we had another proposal for the very low income, but that proposal did not include building the infrastructure, and they were requesting that the city come to the table with like $7 or $8 million to build the infrastructure that this project is able to build as part of the project. So that is a need, and we are continuing to look at ways to use city land or other assets to address that need. But in this case, to achieve the different goals that we had laid out, as far as the road being built to a city standard, all the infrastructure, it could have happened if we brought that much money to the project. But in this case, if we just contribute the land, we're finding a structure for the project that allows it to happen with private investment, the majority of the investment. Does that make sense?
No, that's perfect. I have another question, and you already answered part of it. Let me go to that one. You mentioned the Jenkins Road Ranch road. Let me just go to my point here. So when we've come across multiple developments over time, over the years, and a lot of times you need multiple access roads to a development, even smaller developments. And the Jenkins Ranch Road area that started 20 plus years ago or more, they only have one access road off Florida, I think. Is it Florida? No, it's off. Yeah.
Guggenheim Gulch.
Very good. But when they designed that area, they anticipated the need for a secondary or second access road. And that's why these lots are red. Yeah, and so the road continues on paper, at least on the GIS maps. And just so you know, on the GIS, the right strip of land is the bottom half is red. It's not yellow on GIS. So that yellow property, yeah, that's the one that you're pointing at on La Plata GIS is 2 owners. One is the private owner, and the bottom part is the city of Durango.
I may have missed a property line on there. If I did, I apologize.
Well, it's important because that whole corridor exists for a connection. Now, if this property is developed, you take away that opportunity.
No.
Listen, easy. If I misunderstood something, it's okay. They can explain it to me. I'm not upset with you. What you see. So
Let's
I was
just
just-
get, can you clarify the statement that
Exactly.
Counselor
Can you-
Baxter
Yes.
just made?
Yes.
Not hear it correctly, or is there something?
No, crucial aspect of this proposal and of the RFQ that we put out was having a developer that could build the road at least through the parcels that we own at this point, which is more or less to here. I think this parcel is not city owned. So that was one of the main reasons that we were able to choose the developer that we did, because they had demonstrated the ability to put that road in, dedicate the 80 feet of right of way that we would need for a future connection.
okay, so there will be, and again, I'm gonna ask the same question because I didn't get that.
Dan, can you clarify, rather than going around on questions?
No,
We
can
heard
you-
it
can you just
before.
show
Will
me
there
on the
be an
map a little bit where-
opportunity to build to Jenkin Ranch Road?
Yes, we're retaining that option with this proposal.
Okay.
It's a crucial aspect of the RFQ that we put out.
So where would the houses go? Because you're gonna cut a road right through the middle there.
Let me see if I can go back a couple slides. We have not a great site plan with this presentation. This is sort of the best we've got, but this is kind of the road looping up and around. These are townhomes that would be built into the slope.
Yep.
So again, that's essentially doing this, if you're following my cursor, with some sort of turnaround over here. And that's,
As
we're not
detailed.
in those details at this point,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Okay, that was good. I'm glad to see that. Appreciate that clarification.
No problem.
Yes, thank you for clarifying. The road it has the potential to be built. Thank you. And that is originally in your statement, recognized. Thank you. Other questions or comments?
Yeah, I'm excited about the opportunity of 130 units there. That's great. 50% at the below market or minimum. Forget how you worded it, but that sounds affordable, minimum affordable.
Yeah, below market, yeah, 70 to 120. is
70 to
about
120, great.
my-
So I'm excited about that. It is the one just question I have, just given the location, is entry and exit of that area. It seems like right at that cross, right at the, almost like the light, right? I mean,
Yep.
close. So I'm sure you're going to deal with that, but that's the first thing that I noticed when I look at the map.
Yeah, so this would become a four-way intersection with a stoplight. Obviously, there need to be right-of-way improvements, and I don't know too many details on exactly what that's going to look like at this point in time, but I imagine that'll be something that will be sorted out.
Yeah, and that's just that area. It's really great. I think that we're focusing on that area because it's definitely ripe for development and this type of development. So I think it's really good, especially if Florida Road, we just tend to maintain it well. So if we can continue that, then hopefully with that good entrance, with a four-way stop, then that'll be, I think, a great location for this type of housing. So thank you.
I'll just echo, it's super exciting, 130 units. I think as one counselor, I support the use of city land to, help facilitate that, 50% below market rate. It's not getting built without us. And so I am super excited. Yes, obviously the best projects like the Best Western, like those are great, but it's not only about the low income. It's this is missing. We need to be able to have houses for our teachers and our firefighters and city staff. And, so I am super excited and fully support the use of land for this. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's great. And with the work that we're doing on 32nd Street, I think it dovetails really well into having more development up there. And I'm really excited that there's a developer who's stepped up, who understands the need and really wants to support it. And particularly that they're a native. I think that's wonderful. So I'm very supportive of this project and very supportive of using city-owned parcels to stimulate missing middle development. And I do want to say we're also at the same time with the DOLA grant that we've applied for, participating in stimulating 120 units of lower income housing. So we're not ignoring any section of our housing populace. And I think it's critically important for that. We had that up there a couple of different times, diverse, multi-generational community, that we have all housing types because people move up and they move back down again. You know, retirees, people who are empty nesters. You don't buy a place or rent a place and stay there for the rest of your lives. And if you did, it would never open it up to anybody else. So that ability to move through that spectrum is critical for all of the people who want to live and work here. And so I'm very excited about this. Thank you.
And I'll just add a huge thank you to the staff and also to Jose, because I think the creation of the housing division, we are seeing in very short effort how modest amounts of money can leverage larger investments. So I'm thrilled. I know we'll be talking next week at the retreat about funding sources for our top priorities. I do want it before then to acknowledge your work and your creativity and partnering with local developers. Thank you.
Staff is extremely excited to share good news this evening with you about efforts to modernize and improve the Fair Share Ordinance and program. Pause. In November, DOLA awarded the city a $120,000 grant for the very competitive planning portion of House Bill 21-1271. The city of Durango now has 2 applications in for that very competitive cycle. We've been awarded one. I'm going to be optimistic and hopeful we're going to get awarded a second. For that purpose, to support this effort and other related housing program policy work, the city put out a request for proposals in December and has received a proposal from Root Policy Research and is drafting a contract with them to get started on this work beginning March 1st. March 1st. Root is a woman-owned business based in Denver, Colorado, with more than 20 years conducting housing policy studies nationwide. Root Policy Research Team has a proven track record of managing complex housing studies with a focus on innovative approaches to address needs. Molly Fitzpatrick, the managing director of Root Policy, as well as the project manager for this scope, who's also on the Zoom call in case anyone has questions for her directly. She's attending from Denver. Will be overseeing this in conjunction with the Housing Innovation Manager as the project lead manager. The detailed scope of this was included in your packet and is expected that the project will take 7 months to get the final proposal. And the following key tasks to accomplish this scope include in Q2, feasibility analysis, as well as reviewing existing structure and outcomes. Into Q3, economic analysis, fee and lieu calibration. So looking at those methodologies, ways to look at those fees, as well as rental development into our inclusionary zoning to be compliant with with state law for House Bill 21-117, as well as going into Q4 with recommendations and deliverables. There will be ongoing stakeholder and public engagement, as well as project management and coordination throughout this process. Any questions for staff or Molly?
I'll just say congratulations. It's been a long time working and trying and trying and trying. So thank you for your continued efforts, and it's super excited and can't wait until Q4 when the recommendations and deliverables come out.
Thank you for being so persistent and making it happen. Appreciate it to all of staff.
I'm glad, thank you. I'm glad to see the progress. Just a little question. It says here it is expected that the project will take 7 months to get to a final proposal. But with that, you mean a proposed revision to the Fair Share Ordinance, I guess, or?
Yes, and Molly can probably speak to that. I don't know if we can make her a participant at all, but I can certainly help with that as well. They work in conjunction with another consultant who helps specialize in the code writing component of that. So I would envision part of that recommendation would be part of that as well. There'll be processes afterwards that would come before council for actual adoption and approval processes, which is also another public process. But yes, I would envision that as part of the Q4 deliverable.
Okay, thank you.
Ava, I brought in Molly if there's anything.
Oh, great. Hi, Molly.
Hi, everyone. Yes, that's correct. Happy to answer any other questions, though. Really excited to get going on this project.
Anyone else?
I just want to say thank you to the community development team with the work that they've been accomplishing and being, I think it's only been about a year, Eva, since you've been.
Yes,
here
I
in the housing
started
department?
December 1st.
So I think there's been a lot of progress that's been made. Also want to thank Tim and his team for working with us and on Three Springs Village too, and appreciate the partnership that we have and continuing to look forward to keeping that going and keeping us having some really great success out there. So just a great day to kind of put out some of the things that have been going on in our housing efforts, especially for the workforce housing, and just exciting to see a lot of these things come a little bit closer to fruition.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I'll do
Excited
two
to-
more things that aren't part of the slides, just very quickly. I'm working with TWG development team on an update on the Best Western project. That will be a press release coming out in the next week. So looking forward to sharing that with not only council, but also the community abroad. We also have fulfilled and filled the position of the housing coordinator position. So the housing division is growing and adding resources. Drea Hespy, who's been in our finance department for the past 3 years as our grants and contracts specialist. She has background in construction as well as some housing, has joined our team, and she started yesterday. So a few other things.
Wonderful. Great progress. On that, we will move to council reports and actions. Board and commission council liaison reports. And at the very end, I would like to add something, if I may.
I believe, Mayor, there's 13.2.
Oh, yes. My apologies. Sorry. Discussion and possible action to appoint one counselor and one staff member to the Southwest Colorado Council on Governments and Regional 9 meetings. I know this is a council discussion. I do have a question because when I read the materials, if you could clarify for this, the official vote is not until the end of April or beginning of May. Is that correct? So could you clarify that, please?
Yes, Region 9 just did some board appointments. I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. And we had them pause on city representation until council took this action. They meet, I think it's quarterly. So yeah, it's going to be a while until they convene again and are able to appoint city representation.
Maybe I can clarify on top of that, because I was present at that meeting and I'm the council liaison for the Southwest COG, which is written here as well as one of the appointees. I explained to
Excuse me one moment. Nick, I think somebody may have their speaker on. Okay.
So during the meeting last month, I asked specifically that they cannot officially appoint me, or at least can do it pending council approval because it needs a council meeting. So that decision was made pending council approval. And for the Southwest COG, I'm still the liaison.
The reason I raised the question is because and I'll share this with all the council, with the election, there will be a new group of councilors sworn in on April 18th. And that is typically in that process, what we have done is that may be a time when you talk about which counselor might be serving in what roles. So I appreciate some urgency, but I also wanted to pose that from a council position, we might want to consider the larger scope, a scope of once you have a new counselors and who might want to switch out and what might be appropriate.
When we were elected, am I right that we said we would serve 2 years on a board and then we would switch at 2 years? That's like, so have you been the COG representative for 2 years?
the cog is being
Might
dissolved.
know with the Region 9,
Oh, I'm
but I'm
sorry.
just saying that you were with the COG for 2 years.
Yes.
Great.
I just think that with the election, that it would be wise just to look at all, and also with our discussions around restructuring, that it may be wise for us to just to take a pause on anybody signing up for anything until we look at our new structure, understand exactly what our new positions will be, think about who, would like to serve on which one, and include our 2 new counselors.
I think you have it on the agenda. It is so easy to just make a decision, so at least it's bridged. But if you feel that it's important to have that gap, and then hopefully a new council can discuss it, it's all good by me. You won't hurt me a
I
little
think
bit by it.
since they only meet quarterly,
And it
anyways, it's not every month. I would say I support what you're saying, Melissa.
Okay, it sounds like they are going to take a while to regroup in any case, so it could be very good timing.
There's also a staff discussion as well, but there will not be a meeting in between time until a staff person was determined. All right, so there is not the urgency. All right. To wrap this up, I'm hearing, Councilor Baxter, I didn't hear from you on that.
I don't really have anything to say right now.
Okay, so what I do get a sense of is there's at least 3 council members who would prefer to wait until the new council is seated and you have that overall discussion. And you can also at that time determine, and that would be a staff assignment, a city manager assignment, who the staff member would be. All right. Now, thank you, Jose, for bringing that to my attention. Now we're on to boards and commission council liaison reports. And at the very end, I would like to add an item. So we've got Creative Economy Commission and the airport. That would be Jessica.
I have more. Oh,
Oh, you have
sorry.
more.
Yeah, we had all the meetings this month. I feel like, I know, we had got a couple weeks off in December and then January, because in addition to these, we did 9R, fire, county, who knows? Okay, so I will start with my notes from the Airport Commission. We met on January 19th. We reviewed and approved 2 hangar ground leases, which are falling in with our general leasing policy now. So that's easy and great. We got a terminal design project update. Let's see, $3.2 million grant award was executed in December for the project. We have a GMP or pre-GMP executed with none construction for early procurement. We are looking for construction documents for phase 1A substantially complete on January 10th. And then, there is phase 1A groundbreaking is happening in April. There was a date set and I forget what it is, but I will get it to you before April. How about that? Probably the most interesting thing we talked about in that meeting was terminal phase 1B financial discussion. So that's going to be the biggest part of the project. And Tony is still gathering information and he's in the legal analysis stage, but he brought it to us early for feedback and kind of comments, like in typical Tony preparedness fashion, which is awesome. We looked at several potential options for financing and financial discussion, but mostly general airport revenue bonds, GARBs, they call them, and state infrastructure bank loans, and some positives and negatives of each. And so that was great. And then kind of ties in also with SaltFab discussing debt policy. But the airport is a little bit of a different beast with its enterprise fund. Anyhow. And then last but not least, we talked about the advertising concession agreement RFP, which he just put out, which he kind of modified to be in line with the construction. So as the construction finishes and we have more concessions and, space for, advertising, that we can kind of change and review. So everything's great there. Oh, since our last meeting though, starting late in March, United Airlines will begin flying an Airbus A319 between Durango and Denver. It will be the largest commercial aircraft currently servicing DRO. And it will fly once a day and supplement United's multiple daily flights on regional jet aircraft. This announcement was another example of just further emphasizing the need for us to progress with our terminal development program, because if American ever wanted to do something similar and bring in something to compete with United, like it wouldn't work with our current airport. Like, so it's, yeah. Super great news there. Okay, so that was that one. And then the creative. Groundbreaking is April 25th. Thank you. April 25th is the groundbreaking for the first phase. Okay, Creative Economy Commission was on January 31st. Let's see, we did a budget update. Oh, this was super interesting. Okay, so when we did the first round of the first and second round of the lodgers tax awards, so many of the recipients, being new businesses or artists or whatever, they didn't know how to use the funding, market themselves, apply appropriately. Like it was a big learning curve and a struggle. So with and I didn't write down, $6,500 of the law or funding, whatever, CEC funding. We are using Region 9 loan assistance programs to help. So that way artists don't have to, because with the way the purchasing works with the city of Durango, right, you have to like spend it and then you get reimbursed. And so that way they're doing super low. If not, maybe there could be like 60 or 90 days of no interest. And then they can spend it, get reimbursed, and then pay Region 9 back. So that's great. One. And then what we're actually spending the money on, the consulting, that was something different, was we are going to be providing three free workshops for anyone who is a recipient of the lodgers tax for consulting in terms of like how to market yourself, how to use QuickBooks, how to run your business kind of effectively and efficiently, and utilize the money that way. So that was great. We have a new review committee that's going to review the applications that just went in on the 30th for the first round of lodgers tax this year. The Durango Creates Grant applications are open until April 30th. So that was that one. And then I had SaltFab, which we talked about the airport reserve policy, which we had talked about, and then it went back to the airport commission, and then it came back to SaltFab. So I got to see all the comments because I'm on both of those boards. Anyways, and so we had a couple more suggestions. I think they'll be fine. We got an update on the asset management lifecycle project, which is closing on the RFP. Whenever I said, the end of February, there it is. I have so many notes. And then we talked about an update on the water and sewer rate study, which is why we're holding off on the water and sewer balance policy. And we talked about 2023 SaltFab meeting dates with the potential that it could change with the new boards and commission structure. So that was that. Oh, okay, sorry.
Did you want to mention CAS?
Yeah. I forgot. Okay, I went to the CAS conference in Steamboat. Super interesting, and there was obviously a full day's worth of information, but I'll just kind of touch on some things. They talked about a lot of water policy that they're going through up in Steamboat, which was super interesting. They talked about, they had a really big discussion about their cost recovery model. Which that was interesting because they have a golf course under them, and so that just like what is expected to get 80 to 100% cost recovery, and then what is just community benefit, and so it's zero cost recovery, and it's much different than ours. But that's okay. Let's see here. Pickleball courts. They have a huge facility getting built in Steamboat Springs, indoor pickleball court facility. And so they have anyways, I was like, cool. It's a huge bubble getting built just for pickleball because they use the tennis indoor facilities now, and tennis people don't like that. So anyways, there's that. Okay, hang on. Okay, this was super interesting. So there was a huge talk about sustainability, and they're doing like a private, public, nonprofit, partnership with their sustainability efforts. But one of the big things they're doing right now is they're planting cottonwood trees, which I laughed because they're cottonwood. They're planting cottonwood trees along their river to protect like coverage so it doesn't evaporate. Siri's confused too. Anyways, so but that was like their huge effort, and they've like identified city areas that they own on the edges of the river, and that's like their big, and they're mapping it all. And I forget what they've said. I have so many numbers here, but there was already like huge benefits to what they've been doing, and they grow quickly, and so it's supposed to be super exciting. What else? There was a big healing our politics and how divisive politics is, and how no one's running for city council because it's and so they're doing a big conference about healing our politics up in Aspen. Anyways, housing, which we talked about a little bit earlier today, and that effort with the governor. And okay, so the last thing we did was we took a tour of their they have a joint county sheriff and police department facility, $19 million state-of-the-art facility. We took a tour of it. Now they have like a whole campus. So they have the jail, they have the courthouse, and then they have the sheriff department and police. And it was super interesting. Well, obviously like the gym, like the shared space that those two use is insane. But then they were also saying the relationship improvement, and how like when they're working on a joint case, how they can just work so great together. And it has just really made that county city effort so strong. And there was like 20 people we talked to that was just like, it's amazing working side by side by them. But anyways, so that was super interesting. It was like budgeted at like 16, and I think it came in right under 19, they said.
Very good.
There you go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next on the agenda is the Library Advisory Board.
Okay, we had our library advisory board meeting, it was actually January 18th. But they talked about the strategic plan, focus on customer service for our library. They also intend to help with the establishment of the public engagement group if council gives that direction regarding the library district. Luke is here, so if I have any questions or anything wrong, let me know. We talked about the slightly new library hours. I found it, I want to make sure council knew that the library lobby opens at 8 a.m. Monday through Saturday, allowing people to get out of the cold and get some shelter. The gates to the library stay closed, but the restrooms are open for public use, and it is, and also just to let you know, it's not open on Sunday. But I think it's interesting for the community to know that we are providing that, that as an option for a gathering place as well. Library hours have changed just a little bit to allow for weekly staff training, which is important to process the goals for meeting customer service goals. So it opens at 9:30 a.m. all days except Thursday, when it opens at 10 a.m. and it is again closed on Sundays. And it closes at 6 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and now 5:30 on Fridays. So the goal is to remain open until 8 p.m. on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and of course allow for our open hours on Sunday. Overtime, this is the goal. And the alternative goal is to consider 2 potential half days on Saturday and Sunday if resources can be found for the additional staff time. But the new hours allow for weekly staff training, which is important. I have to bring something up. Unfortunately, I don't want to. But as the library liaison, Councillor Bosmans, you did do a post. And I don't, like I said, speaking of division, I'm not trying to bring this up to be divisive, but only to suggest that you did a post to the library. It was discussed in our meeting, and that's why I'm bringing it up here. And you said that at the time, you said that the library could extend their library hours now. However, you noted that library staff requested a lower library budget amount for 2023 over 2022 and chose not to extend the service hours. So I just want to clarify that That's all I want to do, just factually. The library budget for 2023 was actually 10% higher than 2022. What I think you might have been referring to in your post is that there was money left over in the projected sales tax in 2022 of about $300,000. This is what I'm assuming you were referring to, but I want to just clarify publicly that staff intentionally decided not to bring an additional new staff in 2023 because they are thinking that the joint sales tax may level out and may even shrink in 2023 and or 2024. And library leadership recognizes that it would be very difficult to add staff at this time if you then have to lay them off, especially after they're recovering from the shock of COVID when they had to do layoffs. They're very, very conscientious about bringing on new staff very carefully, only ensuring that it can be a sustainable model to keep them. And so I bring it up not to be divisive, because I don't think I have a divisive relationship with you, but to just clarify the facts for the community, because it is information that does get inaccurate information out, and it concerned me. And so I did want to bring it up publicly.
You mentioned, you said that staff was limited. Can you repeat?
No, you know what?
This is a report. No, she's giving a report that was discussed at the meeting, and I'm not going to go back and forth. We're not going to go back and forth. We'll have a study session. We will have a study session where this can be discussed. Thank you, Melissa, for bringing it up, for sharing what was discussed at the library board. Clearly, it concerns them. And thank you for setting the record straight. This can be discussed at a future meeting. We are in reports.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify one more time. I'm not I'm just trying to really bring factual information out. And I got that from staff, my information from staff on the budget. So I don't want to argue at this time.
But you bring it up and you bring it up.
Well, you brought it up publicly, and so I have the opportunity.
We will table this. This can be discussed at the February 22nd meeting when we talk about code of conduct or any other issues. Thank you for having the courage to raise a subject that was misleading, perhaps inaccurate or downright false. I don't know which, but thank you for sharing the report from the library. Counselor Baxter, do you have anything? Or I'm sorry, multimodal, that was next on the agenda. Then we'll go to Counselor Baxter, and then I will end. A report from the multimodal meeting.
Yeah, I will follow up maybe outside of this meeting, Councilor Youssef, because I think it's totally inappropriate to do it in a public setting. But
we'll hold it there. We recognize we will hold this. I'm going to ask for the report on multimodal, please.
It's a joke, soap opera. On the Multimodal Advisory Board on January 18th, they discussed the multimodal transportation plan, the visions, goals, and preferred treatments. They went over the 2022 annual review of what they accomplished. And they also addressed the comprehensive parking management plan. And then there were the typical approval of minutes and the agenda items. That's all I have.
Thank you, Counselor Baxter.
This was not my cycle for meetings, so next time.
So I would like to, first of all, I want to say that we started by acknowledging the street team, and we also acknowledged the police department and some of the other staff members. But I'd like to call Tom Sluice up to the microphone, please. No, I want to highlight.
Thank you.
Oh, you know what I want to say, it actually builds upon, I didn't know, Melissa, what you were going to raise on the library, but I've been very concerned that there is almost an epidemic of inaccurate, misleading, and downright false information being distributed to the public about council actions, staff actions, council intentions, whatnot. Last week, we had a case where false information, I do not know where it came from, was provided to the VOA that about council's intentions with regard to the Senior Citizen Center. That information was distributed to senior citizens living in relatively low income housing who depend upon the senior citizen. False information can create panic. What I want to address is, Tom, the professional way you handled that, how you worked to get the correct information out, to work with the VOA to recognize that. I don't know where that information came from. I don't know the intent of that information, but it was incorrect and you set it straight. And what I'd like to end is that, Councillor Buell, you have said this before, what you say matters, what we say matters. And I will end with facts matter. Thank you for putting the facts out to the community. If there is nothing else to add, I will adjourn this meeting.